Hey folks, welcome to what is the most important track in the whole event. I can say that because everyone else on every other track is saying that about their events as well. But it's true because developers are what make products, and without products, Intuit and its ecosystem doesn't exist. So welcome to this. It's going to be super important and super fun. My name is Ben Keeps. I do a bunch of things. I'm an industry analyst and journalist and an investor and lots of different things. And you might be able to tell from my accent, I'm from New Zealand, which gives me an opportunity to say to the Australians in the room, sorry about the Rugby World Cup, which for those that don't know, New Zealand won at the weekend. It's all very exciting. It's our national sport. Kia ora to you too. So we've got a cool agenda today. We've got a bunch of exciting things. We've got a panel, we've got a fireside chat, and after a short video, we're going to have a talk from our esteemed colleague, or not my colleague, but some of your colleagues, Avi Golan, who heads up the IDG developer group within Intuit. So I'm going to roll a short video, and then Avi is going to come up.
Having a small business is a 24/7 job. When I first opened my business, it was just me doing absolutely everything. And, people would say, what do you do for a living? And I'd say, I'm a CFO and I'm a janitor and I'm everything in between. Technology was pretty much non-existent compared to where we are now. The way people are shopping today is very different. They're shopping on their phones to see what is brand new on Etsy or Instagram or whatever. And we have to adapt and be a part of that culture if you want to stay relevant.
Not only are expectations from the small business owner changing and that their customers are expecting more of them, the small business owner has substantially higher expectations for the software that they use. They expect to click a few buttons and seamlessly everything is just going to communicate with each other.
After talking to thousands of businesses, the consistent theme was that they needed to be able to have a tool that helped them tie together all their channels.
QuickBooks has transformed my business because the fact that it integrates with my point of sale system, Square, with my inventory, Stitch Labs, everything works so well together that I can stay ahead of my competitors.
I use apps every day. They're very important to automating the manual processes that I do, that my staff does, and that my clients do. Intuit has created this ecosystem for everybody to come to the table and find all of the various solutions that businesses are asking for.
A key example of the power and success of this ecosystem for small businesses is using QuickBooks to attach Stitch, attach Square, attach Shopify. It enables the small business owner to have a best-in-breed shopping cart, a best-in-breed point-of-sale application, a best-of-breed accounting solution, a best-of-breed inventory and order management solution, all under one roof in a way that's affordable to them.
Developers are key to this whole ecosystem because now you can just take a laptop and a browser and access so many apps that can help you automate so much of the work that you do in the same way that a big business does it with their proprietary software solutions.
I want technology to make my life easy enough that I can just take a breath and know that it's working so that I don't have to think about it.
Small business owners are looking for applications to help solve their problems. We have been fortunate enough to build an application that does that, and the market has responded in a way that we could have never expected.
What I would tell other developers is, if you have seen a need in the small business world and you can see that businesses will use that service, build the application.
Yeah, are you pumped up? Did you like the session today, this morning? It was awesome, right? Not sure if you guys stayed for the last part of it, but we gave a lot of prizes this morning for amazing 36 hours of development of great apps. And it just showed the power of the ecosystem that we have. I'm going to take you through some of our vision and strategy. I'm going to take you through some of the studies that we saw in the market about trends and how it's really affecting the development of our ecosystem. 2 years ago, I was standing, less than 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago, I was standing on a stage in a conference with developers, which we were not doing a good job with them. We didn't give them the love that they needed. We didn't give them the access to the elements of being successful on the platform. And about a year and a half later, we're going to expose to you today, and most of you worked with us in the past 2 years, what we have done in order to make developers successful, to fuel small business success. I was talking to developers, and I was talking about the transformation to online. I was asking them to come and join us to the journey to online. We are a desktop company for many, many years, where we took the decision to move to online, to move to the cloud, to move to mobile. And we did it because we saw the transformation of the market to that. And a couple of years later, we see about 40% of the businesses are online. And by 2020, about 80% of them will be online. That's a huge transformation. And we hope that when I spoke last about a year and a half ago, I was hoping that all of these developers, and many of them did, looked at this information and said, we're going to join you the journey of transforming our application and moving our desktop customers to the cloud. Because today, many of the businesses are online. Actually, today, a very high percentage of the business starting online and starting mobile, because most of the businesses are on the go. Most of the businesses do not have an address. They need to move from one place to another, and they need to have access to the information. The other data point that we found is that about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we have 1.2 apps to run their business for small business. It's moving to 3 apps, and it will move to 8 apps, which means that small businesses are now looking on the cloud and the apps market to supply demand that they need, which is applications to run their business. And the transformation, not only that, the transformation came also from the habits of how they use the online system. The usage of online system moving to about 4 hours a day, where previously they were doing back office application. Actually, it was in the back office, and you use it once a week, once a month, to update your systems. But today, you do most of your business online. You do your bookkeeping, you're doing your accounting, you're generating invoices, you're accepting payments, and you're managing customer relations. That's the top application that we saw that running the business. From the other end, we're actually seeing that there is a shift from to the mobile, as I mentioned. About 43% of these customers are doing things mobile. You saw Hope, as she was talking in them. You saw her walking and actually trying to do business. Everybody using their phone and doing business, trying to do business on the mobile. They accept payment, they accept orders, they submit invoices, and so on. They want these apps to be integrated together, to work together. But mostly, they are willing to pay for that experience. And that's an encouraging information to have, because these people would like to have things that will help them develop their thing, grow their business, and make sure that they're moving forward. So that's market and study, some more information, and we're thinking about the cloud and the transformation. We thought about also transformation, not just the cloud, but to a platform. Platform, but an open platform. I can create what we created in the last 36 hours, providing developers an access to the endless tools that can be built on top of QuickBooks. We understand that we cannot do everything for every small business. We understand that very strong in core accounting, and we need to provide this platform of capabilities to allow developers to integrate with our system and provide a solution for the small businesses, which we cannot do for all of them. So we decided it will be an open platform, one code base for every developers, our own developers and third-party developers. And when we take all of this together, when we do that, I talked about apps, and many apps that a small business will be using, but these apps will need to be integrated, needs to work together. They cannot be just standalone. It doesn't work anymore. And eventually, There's a very powerful word over here, which is personalization. You cannot actually create something for every small business. One size fits all is not good enough. And we need to think about global, access to different countries. We need to think about different type of businesses and verticals. How you provide all of this with your application. How we provide it with our platform, a capability to personalize the experience for the small business, because every small business is different. Many of our partners were talking with us about verticalizing and changing the way that the system is, or making it customized in the way that small business can customize their application on top of their system and on top of our platform. So that's our strategy, and that's what we thought about going and building a few years back, and we started to do this journey. And when we thought about it, we actually thought about fundamentals of customer benefits. I'm not sure how many of you are thinking about customer benefit when you build products. I'm sure that you think about customers, right? When you build a product, you're trying to fit it to a customer. So how many of you actually think about customers when you build products? I would guess that all of you, right? How many of you actually measure the success of your product based on the customer benefits? Okay, nice. We at Intuit, we didn't do that. Because you look at big companies, you look at the dashboards and the reports, and you look on revenue. You look at number of customers. You look on growth. That's not really customer benefits. This is our benefit. So we want to change that. We want to change the way we think about delivering to customer benefits, truly. Because we're really talking to customers all the time. We're doing the follow me home, we go after customers, we're getting the feedback, but we don't measure the success. So we did a good job in taking the information, the feedback, but we didn't measure that. And now we started to measure that. And the one thing that we started to measure on is there's so many manual transactions that are happening. Can we automate all of it? And only by own application, but applications that integrate to the platform. So if we reduce the manual intervention of a customer, they can now spend more time running the business. And Brad said this morning that share some statistics on an average small business that's using an app save about 3 hours a week, which is about a month a year that they can go and grow the business. That's saving time. That's the idea behind accounting is done. And we have all of this information. You want to expose this information for the small business because you want them to learn from the trends of the business so they can make the next decision and the next decision of running the business for another day. And when you do that, we want also to think about one fundamental thing that the small business needs, which is cash. They need cash all the time. Cash is the engine of success. And we need to provide them access to cash. And the way we do that, we talk about QuickBooks financing, for example, and the $100 million lending fund that we're putting together. But we also do it with developers, with our partners, like Fundbox, that putting capabilities for small businesses to actually get cash fast and grow their business. So this is created for many of you developers a lot of opportunities. So 1 million subscribers, almost over 200,000 accountants, 400 payroll subscribers, mobile users, access to billions of dollars of merchant services, and eventually 80,000 of developers that actively working on our platform and have apps. But not only that, 600,000 of them of these customers that we created a platform for coming to our app stores and looking for these developer apps every month. And this is to serve the 600 million small businesses in the world, the 29 million in the US. So when we think about customer benefits, we, in my group and myself, think about what is your benefit? How can we serve your benefit? So we looked into that. And we saw there's too many things that you're interested. Number one, most of you are actually also small business. You're trying to be successful. So you want to grow your business. And we have a means to help you grow the business. The one thing that we can give you is leads, it's customers. We have 1 million of them. Why don't we share it with you? And when you give you customers, we also want to make sure that you retain the customer, not just have them and let them go. We want them to be happy. The second part is help you deliver an awesome experience to the market fast. And the way to do that is by enabling you to tools and capabilities to bring you faster to market. And then we'll measure it if the customer is happy. We will measure with you if the customer is happy. By star rating, by NPS, by any means that will help us understand that the integrated solution is a successful one. From last year, we went from 300 apps on the platform. It's actually over 1,500 apps that we have already active on our platform. About 300 plus of them are on the App Store, and many are taking their ways into the app stores and working and to get customers and get feedback before they actually move on with marketing campaigns. But not only that, 160,000 of the million customers that we have already were using an app on the platform. And we're trying to grow the penetration. It's a slow start, but it's moving very fast. And we're seeing a lot of people starting to use apps on the platform. The reason that it's good for you, the reason good for us, because we find stickiness. Someone that uses a QuickBooks plus an app will stay more and use. If they love the solution, they stay more on the platform. So that's the look back. The look forward, we're going to invest more. Our main vision and strategy was that every small business application in the world connect to the QuickBooks platform. We want all of them. Work in the network that we're creating. And we do this by a couple of things, creating the tools and the capabilities, and the elements that will help you get faster to market with the integrated solution. But we're also working on our capabilities to deliver the right app for the right customer. How we can personalize the App Store, that when you come to the App Store, you'll find the right app. You'll find what you need as a customer, that we can make the match between you to the right customers. And we spend a lot of time in personalize this App Store, so we can have the small business be successful in the way that they look for information. This is from technology perspective, but we also we know that we need to grow the business. You don't have the right cash, so we want to help you. We are announcing today a new partner program, the one that can give you funds to go to markets once you're live on apps.com, on the App Store. When you're live on App Store and you have customers, you come to us, and we'll see great review, and we start sharing funds. And we'll share more about this program. Actually, there is a press release that issued today, but during the business session later on this afternoon, you can hear more about how can you become part of this partner program, how you can get access to funds. We'll give you things, but we'll ask you things in return, which is get customers, get them to be happy. We're not charging for anything that you do in order to come to our App Store. We want to be successful because we want to feed the ecosystem with application and solution like yours. So that's the future of what we're having, and we have a lot to talk about it in the next few hours this afternoon in a tech session where you can learn more about the technologies, in the business sessions that you can learn more about how you be successful using marketing and the materials that we created to make the developers successful. And with that, I thank you. Stay. We have a very nice agenda this morning, and come in the afternoon session and join us to learn more about each one of the capabilities. Thank you so much.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a bit of a fireside chat without the fire, which is kind of a bit of a euphemism, but that's all right. And I'm going to talk with Josh Reeves from Gusto. So Josh, do you want to introduce yourself? And people in the room may not know who Gusto is, but they knew who Gusto was. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Am I coming through? Yeah, my name is Josh. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Gusto, formerly Zen Payroll. We'll dive into that in a bit. But born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area, so proud to call this area my home. And started the company about 4 years ago with two co-founders. We're based in SF, just opened an office in Denver, and proud partners of the QuickBooks ecosystem.
Okay, so bunch of developers in the room. Everyone knows that they need to be able to pitch. They need to be ready to give their message at any possible minute. You're in an elevator with someone. What's the 30-second message explaining what Gusto is and what it does?
Yeah, I mean, many of you hopefully are also customers. What we do is we're building out the people platform, and that can best be described as things like payroll, health insurance, workers' comp, HR, a lot of these functions that are very important and very analogous to the finance platform in terms of how you take care of your team, but also how you take care of all of those complex tax filings, different tax calculations, insurance enrollment procedures. So in summary, I always say it's about peace of mind. How do we help these business owners have peace of mind with something that today is incredibly complex, but also help them put people first? Many of these systems were built in a way where people were thought of as ID numbers, transactions, just payments, and we think that's at the loss of how you really build a great business.
And that's something that I often reflect upon. I own a bunch of small businesses and run small businesses. And what people in enterprise world don't sort of realize is that small businesses are just as complex as large businesses, only they don't have the resources of the people to kind of solve all those processes. What made you, from a vendor perspective, there's a lot of money at the enterprise side of town. What made you decide to look, at the smaller end of town?
Yeah, I think in a lot of it, I think there's entrepreneurs in the audience as well. That really ties back to why we started the company. And for us, the inspiration was each of us had run prior startups, had felt some of that pain and frustration. And then each of us actually have family that have helped run small business. And you know very well how much small business can even be a family affair at times. And so we felt that it was an audience that both was massively underserved, in a lot of pain. Every year, a third of companies in the US get fined for incorrectly doing their payroll taxes, for example, which is atrocious. And so we were excited about really serving that audience, a community where people have been wearing 20 hats for a long time, doing it all on their own, and bringing them a lot of the technology, the tools that previously were only available to larger businesses.
I mean, that's really awesome. And I want to give a personal shout out to anyone in the room who is building products for small businesses, because small businesses are absolutely the lifeblood of the economy. I know at home in New Zealand, like 97% of GDP comes from small businesses or some ridiculous statistic like that. And yet we're kind of forgotten because enterprise, vendors always get excited about delivering to large businesses. So big ups to anyone who's building tools to make life better for small businesses, because it's super important. It's a really big thing.
I was going to say, one of the biggest lessons too from small business, which it's a fun trend. In some ways, we're taking technology that was only available to big business, bringing it to small business. But there's an inverse trend where if you look at how a small business has been run, they always, for the most part, put people first. It's a community. It's this idea of how do you celebrate a great new hire? How do you build great team structure? How do you help someone feel appreciated for their work, not just get them paid on time? And so in some ways, we're trying to bring those lessons to bigger businesses over time. It's a reverse trend.
It's quite funny, actually, because we talk about what's happening in large businesses. Look at the Walmarts and the Amazons and whatever, and they're trying to personalize and they're trying to understand their customer and do all the stuff that small businesses have always done. Because if you had a mom and pop store, well, of course you knew your customer. They came in every day and you kind of knew what they wanted and you could give them their order and stuff. So it's kind of, you're right, it's kind of funny that we're doing this turnaround thing, and small businesses still have a super important part to play, and no end of automation from the likes of the big retailers or whatever can replace that personal touch. So that's super important. I mean, for you've obviously been on a real trajectory. You've grown super fast. You've taken huge amount of funding, 86 million, I think.
Yeah, give or take.
Give or take, over 4 rounds, unless you've got something else to announce today, just for the audience. Another funding round? Nothing at this stage. What have been the challenges? What's kept you awake at night? And I think everyone in this room realizes that small business is from the zenith of ultimate ecstasy to the trough of utter despair and back again in 5 minutes. But what have been the big challenges for you?
Yeah, I think, and to your point on progress, we're very proud of the progress. We've now been live for 3 years. We're processing several $1 billion in payroll, serving companies across every industry in every state in the country. But when I hear about, what are the challenges, what are the puzzles, to me the biggest puzzle is always maintaining focus, especially as a company is scaling. And in our case, it's not just customer count scaling, it's also team size. We're now a 300-person organization, which relative to some of the folks in our space is still quite small, but relative to 3 years ago when we were 10 people feels quite large. And so maintaining discipline in how we do quarterly planning and how we think about hiring, for us, this is something that I'd like to do for the rest of my life. It's a mission for us, it's not a job. The joy that we get from seeing how much help we're providing our customer and seeing my teammates grow is something that motivates me every day.
I mean, how does that work? I mean, just thinking through that, in the space of a few years, you've grown hugely. I mean, what does that ask from you as a leader? Because back in the day, you were doing everything. You were, the CEO, CFO, CTO, see everything, and now you've got people to do stuff. What does that feel like and look like from your perspective?
Yeah, I joke my job is to keep firing myself from as many jobs as I can. So in many ways, again, I used to run marketing, run sales, run a lot of functions. We have incredible leaders now in those roles, and my goal is to empower them. And I think my role does evolve quite a bit over time. Ultimately, I'm a steward for our strategy, our direction, which way are we pointed and why. But in our business especially, and I'm sure for many of you in the audience, it's not just about achieving a goal. It's also about how we achieve that goal and being proud of that journey itself. And so I spend a lot of my time internally facing in terms of how we approach all-hands meetings and one-on-ones and manager training. We call our managers people empowerers because the role of someone at Gusto is not to manage or control someone, it's to enable them, to help them do the best work of their life. But that's a constantly evolving process. I always say change is the one constant. How we do anything, the same job at 5x scale is a totally different job. And so we have to keep reminding ourselves of that as we get bigger.
So as you've grown, who have you looked to as role models, either from within the technology industry or within the general business industry or more generally? Who do you think of as leaders or people that you aspire to be like in your growth?
Yeah, I think I'll definitely dive into some of the individuals that I'm inspired by, but the best answer I've ever heard to that thought, that discussion is life is my mentor. Every interaction I have, every interview I do with someone is a chance to understand how did I do, how could I improve, what could I learn from that experience. So in some ways, this is an opportunity for me to understand myself better as well. But how we've approached fundraising has been a bit unique. So we have 100 plus individuals really as a huge part of our investor base. They're primarily CEOs and co-founders of technology companies and/or folks from various targeted industries. And they're my sounding board. They're folks that are invested primarily because they got really excited about the mission. It's the CEO and founders of PayPal and Dropbox and Twitter and a whole host of pretty amazing businesses that when we talk to them, it's a chance to hear their perspective on hiring and strategy and a lot of the hard decisions that come up in running a business.
I mean, that's really interesting. So I do a bunch of angel investing, and I'm always more involved rather than less in my companies, in the companies that I invest in, because like that old discussion about smart money versus dumb money. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in this room who are going down the path of fundraising, and there's this kind of school of thought that says, take the best valuation you can get, take whoever's offering the most money. But I suspect that you would disagree with that perspective. What's your thoughts on that smart money versus dumb money question?
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone aspires to be dumb money, right? I think it's ultimately a question of what's the motivation of an entrepreneur in starting their business. For us, this is something that we hope to do for many decades. And so I always have thought of fundraising as analogous to hiring, right? We have three kind of guiding principles in how we approach hiring. It's values alignment, shared motivation, and relevant skill. And that's really been the primary means of me getting to know who would be a great partner to work with. And my preferred means of getting to know an investor is to go on a hike. Now that's not a requirement by any chance, but the chance to go on a walk, get outdoors, get to know someone more personally in terms of what they stand for, what they care about, what they believe in, especially since after someone makes an investment, they become an ambassador for your business. They now represent you in many areas. I think has been especially helpful to us over the years.
I think that's really important because obviously the traditional thing is to go to Blue Bottle or somewhere and share a coffee, but something that's really important for us in the technology industry is to take ourselves out of this bubble, whether it's the Silicon Valley or whether it's sitting in front of screens or whatever, and go outside. And because it's something that in the small business sort of sector we may be more aware of, but enterprises tend not to be, is that there's a whole bunch of context that comes with people. And your customers aren't just numbers, they aren't just people doing a functional role. They have a business and they have lives and they have aspirations and they have desires and needs and whatever. And that whole alignment between yourself and your investors is super important, and finding that in different contexts.
Yeah, I think, and especially when it comes to customer base. I mean, we love serving Silicon Valley, but tech across the whole country is only about 14% of our base. So the majority of our customers are hotels and bakeries and cafes and churches and flower shops. And so it's really fun to be able to interact with them and see what inspired them to start their business. It's a privilege for us to serve them. It's a very pure motivation for many small business owners. No one made them do what they do. It was a labor of love to go create something that they were going to be proud of. And one thing we do internally, to your point on the intensity of startup life, if many of you are in the software field, there's always a million things to do. It can be a very intense journey. We work very, very hard, but I've always thought about how do you take a step back? And for me, it's either going into nature, but when we were brainstorming what to do for our first employee's one-year anniversary, we came up with what we call our flyaway program. So everyone at Gusto on their one-year anniversary gets a free plane ticket anywhere in the world, and they have to use it by their second year. And it's in that same vein, a chance to encourage someone to take a step back, to travel. Travel is an incredible chance to see a different place, change your perspective, be challenged in your assumptions. And in our business, especially where we have customers all over the country, it's a very helpful way to get out of the Silicon Valley bubble that exists at times.
That's awesome. I was reading about a company, I can't remember who it was, recently that do an all-hands every quarter or 6 months somewhere else in the world, and they go away for 2 weeks, and wherever it is, on the beach or in the mountains or whatever, it is super important. I really, what you said about real world customers and mom and pop customers. I own a backpack business, backpacks and apparel. And the most exciting thing for us was that when we saw someone wearing one of our bags who we didn't know, because the first sales are always to your buddies and to your family and to whatever, but when it's like, well, we actually don't know this person, they're a customer, it must have been the same for you. It's like, you sell to tech companies, it's like, yeah, that's not really that hard, they'll buy anything. But when you sell to someone that's actually doing something in the real world somewhere outside of the valley, it must have been awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. I used to every night go to bed reading the list of all the new customers, and now that would keep me awake for a long time. But the chance, again, to see folks that we're here to serve. I mean, we're in the software as a service industry. My favorite word in that statement is service. I'm here to serve my team. We're here to serve our customer. That's why we exist in the first place. Everyone in our company works in customer care on a regular basis. Whenever someone joins the company, they spend time on that team as well. That's the heart and soul of actually why we exist as a business.
That's awesome. And so in terms of the tech industry, in terms of partnerships, we hear a lot about companies partnering left, right, and centre with different people. What do you think the opportunities are for the developers in the room in terms of partnership? Obviously, Intuit has a massive customer base, so that's obvious. But go into the sort of deeper things you think around about partnerships.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes back to in anyone building a business, understanding what is core, what is non-core, because it's very easy to get caught up in chasing different directions and lose focus, back to our discussion on what is the biggest challenge in building a company. But the beauty to me is if you think about it from the customer standpoint, we're at a stage now where you can actually have different products work together in a way where it's completely seamless for the end user. They have to go through an OAuth process, approve it. Obviously, privacy and respecting their control of their data is very paramount. But once that's done, I mean, we have a whole host of folks that work with us, for example. T-Sheets is a great part of the Intuit ecosystem. Whenever you've used their time tracking software, you can connect it to Gusto, and right away, whenever you come to run payroll, the number of hours someone's worked is immediately synchronized behind the scenes. So I think about it mostly from the lens of how amazing this is for the customer, for the business owner, that person that's been on the go, wearing 20 hats for a long time, pulling their hair out and miraculously still building their companies for the last 50, 75 years, really on their own. And now we have a chance to actually make their life much, much better. I mean, even in our industry, and we're part of the payroll industry, amongst others, 40% of companies are still doing payroll by hand, pen, paper, spreadsheets. And we're seeing that shift very rapidly go onto the cloud. Obviously, that was the focal point of Avi's presentation. And so it's an amazing time to be a small business owner, in my opinion.
I mean, it's funny. It's the little things. You know, I mean, shout out to another into a partner, Receipt Bank. You know, I use Receipt Bank to scan my receipts, and it's just amazing how simple tools like that, you know, automated into your accounting package, can just make a difference. And it seems you know, obvious, but it's not obvious when you've been doing something manually with pieces of paper and ring binders and folders for years and years. So it is super exciting to see. You know, people talk about the democratization of technology, and they kind of talk about that a little bit glibly, but it is actually amazing. Like, it's amazing to see mom and pop businesses that can actually do stuff that they could never have done before.
Yeah, and we have to never take it for granted. I think the role in the developer community is one of understanding how big of an impact we can have, and then doing it in a way where we understand how we can actually serve the customer better. I always like to quote Ben Parker from Spider-Man, if you guys are familiar, but with great power comes great responsibility. We're doing something really important for our customer when it comes to paying taxes, filing payments, getting people's salaries to them on time, setting up insurance. We never had a beta or an alpha, for example, in our product. It had to work right from day one. But I think that balance of making sure we always iterate, grow, learn, but also serve the customer with paramount quality has really been the hallmark of our company thus far.
Awesome. So what's next for you? What's the next little while going to bring? More customers, obviously, and maybe some more funding or whatever, but what do you see coming ahead?
Yeah, well, I think, like I alluded to it, the trend in the market today is only accelerating. I think the next 5 years, you'll see a much bigger shift of folks moving off of pen, paper, spreadsheet, manual process. I like to think that we'll make a big dent in that stat of 1/3 of companies getting fined every year for incorrectly doing their payroll taxes. So it would be awesome to have that go to a much, much smaller percentage. But I think the trend is mostly like, stay true to our mission. Frankly, we don't have any. What we've set out to do, what we've announced, what we've been public about, has been the goal from day one. All right, it was our inspiration point from seeing how much unnecessary pain is in this market, and also seeing how, if you guys have seen the movie Office Space, maybe you can relate, but just how all these terms like human capital management, human resources, subordinates, org charts, a lot of the language in this industry is littered with things that dehumanize a person and make them into kind of a unit of work. And bringing back that focal point, that focus on these are people, this is a community. It's, yes, important to build the right P&L structure and cash flow, but it's also important, especially given that people now change jobs very frequently, to build a culture in your company. And that's a big part of what our product does. We do the peace of mind piece. We help you with taxes, payments, filings, et cetera. But the whole product is about how do you celebrate a new person joining your team. And I'm excited, again, about that trend. More small businesses is a good thing for the world.
That's awesome. Which is a great point to segue into our panel. Thanks, Josh. Thanks for your insights. It's been great to have your thoughts. Open invitation if you ever want to come hiking in New Zealand. You're more than welcome.
I actually got married there 6 months ago. My wife and I did a destination wedding. So
awesome. You don't know how many people tell me that. They either want to get married in New Zealand, did get married in New Zealand, or something similar.
I highly recommend it.
Awesome.
Yeah.